PowerPoint here?
Yeah, we do. We got it.
Perfect. Okay. So first I'll start with a little bit of context as to why the solution even came into place. As I said, I work for Edward Jones. If you're not familiar, we are a financial advising firm. So our financial advisors, take calls or take meetings with clients, and they place trades. Now, after the trade gets placed, in theory, it gets fulfilled by the system, and everyone gets the money that the shares that they're owed. But that doesn't always happen for a few different reasons. System errors, communication between broker dealers that might have to happen. Some trades just don't go through properly on the initial go through there. And of course, we want to make sure that clients are getting everything that they need. And so to make sure we're on top of those trades, we used to have some macros that would generate a daily Excel file. It would have all that kind of information there that we would need to review. And our teams would do some commenting, do some resolution, make sure that everything was good to go, essentially. And that last part is really why we needed an Excel solution. We could display all that data in Power BI in theory, but to actually provide right back to the system, we needed to use Excel. I know there's add-ons or Power BI's new translytic flows you can use with Dataverse, but unfortunately, we don't have any of those additions. So if we were just going with Power BI, Power Automate Core, this was the only way that we saw to make this happen. So there's a couple pros and cons of this original approach. On the pro side is speed. Those macros worked very quickly. The data would generate in itself very quickly. We had about 5 macros, 5 Excel tabs in that spreadsheet, and it was fast. We'll leave it there. And secondly was familiarity and convenience. It was really easy for existing people to really take that solution. It's in Excel. Everyone knows Excel. They can hit a macro button. They can teach someone else how to hit that macro button and make sure that everything runs well. But there were also a couple pretty big cons we were considering when automating this. One, error handling and maintenance. If you hit an error, you kind of might have been out of luck because our users didn't necessarily know how to actually solve them because someone developed it for them. And we didn't really have a set of developers that were dedicated to these kinds of solutions. So it might take us a while to actually get things up and running. And that's not really the best experience for our workers. And similarly with maintenance, if we needed something updated, we have a very dwindling base of users who even know how to read the macros. There's a lot of variables and loops that they would have to really parse through and understand. And of course, comments to the code aren't always the best. So it would really take a lot of effort to change something small in the actual code. Secondly, is scale. If you try to apply that same methodology from one spreadsheet to another similar application, you would still have to do quite a lot of coding. The query would have to be different. The columns might be different. You have to write a bunch of new variables and for loops and really understand all the core mechanics that are going on. And oftentimes those macros rely on each other. So you might also not have that same chain and sequence of things going on, which makes it even harder to develop and redevelop. And then lastly, it's got to be manually triggered. In the age of tools like Power Automate, where we can schedule things to happen before we even arrive at our desks, macros, we still have to get on there. We have to press the buttons and make them run. And at times, after the macros ran, our teams would have to do a lot of extra prep work to the data, and that could take them 30 minutes. It could take them a couple hours on a bad day. And that's something that isn't the best experience when we can generate data exactly the way we want to see it with the Power Platform suite of products there. So in our new workflow, essentially only one thing changes. We replace those macros and we put in Power BI and Power Automate to generate our files. And before I get into the core demo, just to get things in your head of how things are going to go, essentially in Power BI, we need to get our data, of course. So in this case, we'll be using an Excel sheet structured kind of similarly to the concept I explained before with our trades. We can have to create table visuals the way we'd want to see them in Excel, so we can grab the DAX that those visuals use. And then we have to publish that data set for Power Automate to use. On the Power Automate side, if we want to do this every day, we can create a series of steps to generate a template file exactly the way we want it every single time. Then in our main flows, we determine whether any data exists to be ran. And if there is, we run our DAX query that we get from Power BI to generate that data and save it to the schema that we want. And then we add that data to Excel. And so those are the steps I'll be going through. And one additional consideration there is that for large volumes of data over 5,000 rows, we do have to run a couple additional steps to make sure it all goes through properly. Okay, so with that, let me head over to the actual demo components here. So like I said, given a little bit of context, I created a couple data sets here. This is all fake data. If somehow it got your name on here, I apologize, but all this is fictional, generated in Python. And basically, I just generated some basic client information, the region they live in, as well as a trade they placed, whether it's approved, canceled, or rejected, the value of that trade was supposed to have, and an index. And then I did create just a summary data set by region and by status here, and a separate data set just for the rejected ones. So we can use it to capture only that data in our Power Automate. So with that in mind, let's say that with all that data I just showed you, I wanted to create an Excel every day with 2 tabs. In that first tab, I would just have rejected items. I want to know, where a trade was rejected, how much it was worth, and get some comments from the team as to why it was rejected and if we've solved the problem, if the client's good to go. And then I also want to monitor trade status by region. Maybe on a particular day, see a spike in rejections in a particular region, and I want to understand that, want to see if there's a technological problem, if there's anything we can do to impact it at the firm level, and just get that understanding. So the first step to doing that in Power BI, after I have these visuals, is getting the DAX for them, because we're going to need that in Power Automate. And you can get the DAX behind these very easily with Performance Analyzer. So if you haven't seen that before, if you go to the View tab, Performance Analyzer is one of these panes that you can select, and I actually have it open here on the side. This is useful in case you haven't seen it again to tell how quickly your visuals are running and to grab the DAX from them. So if I hit my Start Record button here, hit my Refresh Visuals, and then stop it after I'm done, you'll see it generated 2 line items here, one for each of these visuals. It'll give me a breakdown of how long it took to execute the query and how long it took to actually display it. You can use that to find, in general, if your DAX queries are taking too long and try to tune them so that your report won't spin too long for your users. But we care most about this copy query. So I'm going to copy this query, and I can actually go to this DAX query view and save it here. And I've already actually done that and loaded it in. So you'll see when that code runs, it's going to generate that table we saw on the left, and the second tab will generate on the right. Oh, it looks like someone said they can't hear me. Can everyone else hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I can,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. So maybe Jade is just having some connection issues there. Okay, so anyway, now that we've got our DAX and our tables here, we are ready to move into Power Automate. So this is a live demo, so I do have a couple backup items here just in case things go wrong. But like I mentioned before, the first step on a daily basis that we'll want to do is actually generate a template file. And so in my SharePoint site here, I actually generated a template here. And all it is that structure I wanted to see. And each of these items is formatted as a table using the Excel buttons here. So we've got the summary table, and we've got our rejected table. And I named them as well for rejected and summary. So we want to generate that every single day. And we can do that with a series of steps here that I'll walk through. This one I won't do live, but it is included in the content that I have in my GitHub. So what you can do is essentially use the get file content connector here and select your template file. And that's going to read in the structure of that file exactly as it exists. Then you can use the compose action here, and that's going to grab that file content. And then you can use the create file connector to create a file. I created it with today's date, and it'll just use that same content that we had at the start. Now, I actually already generated that file earlier today, so you can see this one has the today's date on it, and it has that same structure. So that's the first step on a recurring basis, is making sure the file is there to receive your data. Now from there, let's create a new flow and go into really the bulk of the presentation. I'll do an instant cloud flow so I can just trigger it whenever I want, essentially. But of course, if you want this to happen on a daily basis, you can use a scheduled cloud trigger or whichever other trigger you might need. So for the basic use case, there's really only 5 steps that we've got to do. The first one I'm going to do is put my items into a scope block. And if you haven't seen the scope block, that in itself is very useful if there's nothing else you take away from this presentation. This lets you put in multiple lines of multiple components from Power Automate all into this block, and then you can move those around, delete them, and copy them all as a group, rather than having to copy and paste things separately or move them around if you accidentally put them in the wrong part of your flow. So within my scope, first thing I've got to do here is get my data. So I'm going to go to the Power BI connectors here, and I'm going to run a query against a data set. So I'm going to select the workspace I need, select the data set I need there, and it asks me for a query. And so I'm going to go back to BI here, and I'm going to grab my DAX. So we don't have to write any ourselves, which is great because I personally would not want to write that. And so now we've got our query. Next, we've got to tell Power BI how we actually want that schema to look when we're going into our Excel file. So we're going to go into this data operation and use the select item here. And we're only going to have one option in the from field. It's going to be this table rows. So we're going to grab that. And then for each column that I'm seeing there, I need to enter a name for it and the value from that previous query. So I've got client name, trade status, and last one was trade value. So that's how it's going to appear for my subsequent steps. And for the value, I'm going to grab my my formulas from my notes here. So we're going to use this pretty standard syntax. It's always this item parentheses question mark, and then in these brackets, you're going to put your item. So you can see in the DAX itself, let me actually go back a second. You can see that it's going to display these 3 items. So you can see rejected client name, rejected trade status, and trade value. So those are the values I'm grabbing in this subsequent step. So I'll change this one to trade status. And then I could do the same thing for this third one, but if I did that just that default value, it would just show up as a number without any decimals, any dollar signs, any commas. That's not really how I want to see it. I'd really like to see that currency. So I'm actually going to put in a slightly longer formula. And it's basically just asking it if there is a value for that trade, or sorry, if there isn't a value, if it's null, to make it null. Because if you don't do that and you call this format number, it actually will give you an error, which is not ideal. So if there's nothing, just leave it alone. But otherwise, I want to format that same trade value as a currency. That's what that capital C is for, in the US style. Perfect. So now I've got my 3 items here mapped, and my further step will know what to do with it. And now I can actually apply all that data to my Excel sheet. So I can do that with this apply to each item. And as the input there, I'm going to do the output from that prior step. You'll see it's the body of that select statement there. And then I'm going to use our Excel add-in here, Excel Online Business. And by the way, none of these are premium connectors, so none of this is stuff that you'll have to pay for or do extra if you've already got Power Automate. and within that Excel business connector, I'm going to add a row into a table. You'll see you can't just add it really to a sheet. So that's why we had to make sure that everything was in a table in that Excel file. So a few things it's going to ask us here. For some reason, oh, maybe the BI gods are not pleased with me today because there should be some more SharePoint sites in there. So let me try to reload this, and if not, I'll go into my backups. I think it won't like that either if I leave it there. Oh, I literally did this 30 minutes ago, so I'm not sure why it would hinder me here. Let's just refresh it. Okay, so let's try again with that apply to each loop. We're going to do the output, and let's see if it's going to be kinder to me this time. Add a row into a table. And there we go. Okay. So I'm going to select my communication site. That's just where I stored all these files. I've only got one document library, so that'll make that easy. For my file, in this case, I actually want a new one every day with that date title. So I'm gonna go to that path where that folder is. I want Austin there as the prefix, and then I actually wrote a formula here. It grabs today's date, subtracts a few hours so that we're matching Eastern time, not UTC time, and I just format it in this year, month, date format here. So I grabbed that, and now it's going to ask me which of my tables do I want to put it in. You're going to see if you put a dynamic value in here, it's not actually going to write out what tables exist in that Excel sheet. If there wasn't a value in here, I just wrote it out as plain text, it would actually prompt you with a list of actual tables. But that's not a problem because I know the name of my table there. And for my row, I'm just going to get the current item from my apply to each loop. And so that's, for the basic case, that's all you've got to do. So really there's just a little bit of coding involved, mostly with this one, where you've got to know kind of how to structure things. But for that one rejected tab, that's it. Now, like I mentioned, the cool thing about this scope is that I can copy all 5 of those actions. And if I right click here, I can paste the entire thing all over again. So for my second tab, all I've got to do is grab my second query here. I do need to change my schema there because there's a couple things that were different in that table. This was client region, and the other two were the same, but it is a different data set. So let me grab those there. So we're going to get client region. Again, it's that same structure of item and then your item in brackets there. Grade status. And we actually don't have to change the third one because all it had was that trade value. That's what happens when you summarize a column. It doesn't list really that data set anymore, which is to our advantage. Okay, and let me make sure that it's grabbing the right item. You can see it's run a query against data set 1, which is perfect. Sometimes it doesn't grab the proper one, so you always just want to check. I think this one usually had a habit of not doing the right one, or actually it was this one. You see it's still that apply to each, not apply to each one. So always make a habit of double checking things when you copy and paste. But other than that, we have our schema here. It's all set up. And we just want to change our table name because this should now be the summary table. Okay, and with that, that should be all of our steps if I've done it right. And let's test it out. Oh, I must have missed something there. Bad request. Okay, sorry, let me go back. Well, I've done this right about 5 times today, so of course, when I need it to happen, it doesn't do it properly. Yep, current item. Oh, it's still grabbed that apply to each. That might have been it. Let's try that again. Hopefully long save is good. Okay, so it looks like we're good to go. We're going to manually test it, and hopefully in our Excel sheet that I'll switch to here in a second, get these zoom controls out of the way. Hopefully we're going to see some items start popping up, and we do. So you can see it's going to populate them one or two at a time. You know, it'll get probably two or three in a second. Probably depends somewhat on the servers and your actual computer speed there. But it's working on it. There's 45 rows in this data set and 14 in there. So we'll let we'll let this spin there for a little bit while I explain the next part. So what we did is great, and it assumes we're always going to have data and that our data is going to be small. But that isn't always the case. There's two things that I ran into that you really have to worry about and that you can proactively take care of so that your flow doesn't error out. One of those things is before this apply to each step, we have to have data. So let's say that I ran this tomorrow and we had no rejected trades. Well, that would be a great case for our clients, right? Nothing got rejected. Everyone was happy the first time around. That's actually terrible for this Power Automate flow. Because if I go to here and I have an apply to each with 0 items, it's just going to error out at me. And so if it errors out, for example, at this part of the flow, this second flow part of the flow isn't even going to run. So that's not great. That's something we can fix. And secondly, in this apply to each loop, you have a limit of 5,000 items per cycle. So if I had 5,001 rejected trades and I just tried to run this, it would error out at the very end at me. That's also not great, and it's something that we can work around. And with that being said, looks like this has done its job. I think there might be one more row there. Oh, or maybe not. We've got 3. So you can see it populated everything I wanted it to, 45 rows on one, 12 on the other. And it took it, maybe a minute or so. But now let's actually go in and handle these errors, or these potential errors rather. So at the start, I'm going to want to create a couple of variables. So I'm going to create one variable here for, oh, not set it, apologies. I'm going to initialize a variable. I'm just going to call it row count to get through that first issue I was discussing. We don't need to set it to anything quite yet. And then I'm going to create an index start and index end so we can loop through our data efficiently. So that was index start. There's one more here called index end as an integer. And we're going to give it, in theory, you could put this all the way up to 5,000, but since I've got such small data, I'm just going to set it to 10 just to prove that it's going to work at the end of the day there. So we've got our variables here. Now we want to apply that first part. We want to see how many rows of data we have and whether to run our query at all. So to get our row count, we're going to go back to Power BI. And the quickest way I found to do that is just to create a KPI card here. I'm just essentially counting one of the fields. That'll get me the row count. And the same for that summary table. So I've got 45 and 12. And I can use that same trick of using Performance Analyzer to get my visuals and get the DAX behind them. And so if I actually go to that DAX, you can see that it'll give me something like this. It's gonna give me a row of data. It usually titles this something a little funny, so I typically rename it so that it actually makes sense to a human being. And it's just returning a table with one value there. So we're gonna copy that and put it into our query here. And of course, gotta put in our workspace and our data set. Okay, so we've got our query set up there. Now we want to actually go to the output and actually grab the schema. When this thing runs, when this first step runs, it gives us a JSON output. So and if you haven't seen JSON before, it's going to look something like this. Now, you can see it's basically going to the body, getting results, and finding my row here. So this is just how Power BI's output comes through every single time here. The only thing that's really going to change is this reject count if you name your variable something else. And I'll show you after I actually run this how you can generate it yourself by running the flow. But in general, once you have the structure, you can just copy and paste it into the schema. It's always going to be the same. Again, you just make sure that this is up to date here instead of reject count. And so for this, we are going to grab the body, the body of our result there. And so that's going to grab the output. And what we want to do is save that output to our row count variable. So now I'm going to go and set this variable. It's going to ask me which one. So I'll use row count. And I'm going to use a formula to actually grab the data. I know this might look a little bit complex, or like there's about 5 nested functions in here. But again, this is something that once you have it once, you can just copy and paste it and replace your reject count and potentially your step name. And all that it's doing is essentially it's splitting this text string into 2 parts. It's splitting it on this middle part here. So I'm getting one text string with everything before it and one with everything after it. And then I tell it to just grab that second one with the 100 because that's what I care about. I'm doing that again after that. So now I'll have, I'm splitting on this bracket. So I'll get one text string that's this 100 and one that's all the rest of it here. And then I just grab that first part, that 100, and turn it into a number. That's all that this kind of long jumbled string is doing. So after I've got my variable, now I know how many rows I have, and I can determine whether or not to run my query. And I can do that via, in this control section, this condition block. So I can say if my row count is greater than 0, in that case, I actually have real data, so it'll go to this true field. So that's when I actually want to run all these items here. And if it's false, rather than erroring out at me like it would if I didn't have this condition, it's just going to stop. Nothing's going to happen, and it's going to move on to that second scope block. So that's how we handled error 1, or potential error 1. Now we have to deal with the case of when there's more than 5,000 rows of data. And we're going to handle that by essentially looping through our data up to 5,000 items at a time. And the way we do that is, again, going back to our control section here, we use a do until loop. So we're going to set a condition here, and I'm going to move everything inside there. And we're going to set a condition of our index starting point being greater or equal to our row count. And so essentially, as a way to make sense of this, let's say that we had 6,500 rows here in our data set. And let's say we loop through 5,000 at a time. So our first index start is going to be 1. We're going to loop through 5,000 items. And then we're going to ask our index start to increment. We're going to increase it. So after 5,000, we're going to say, OK, now you're going to loop through as 5,001 to the endpoint of 10,000. So at that point, 5,001 is still not greater than 6,500. So it proceeds through that loop and gets all my data. After that, we've gone 5,000 to 10,000. And so next would be 10,001. At that point, well, 10,001 is greater than 6,500. So that must mean we've gone through all of our data and we're good. So at that point, that do until loop would stop and our loop could enter its next phase. So we're going to set that up like I described there. And in order for everything to increment, you actually have to go to your variable functions again here, and we're going to increment it. So again, I'm just going to do it by 10 here because I've got much smaller data than that 5,000 limit. And we're going to increment both that start variable and that end variable. So now it's going to, now it's going to loop through that. And then the final step that we've got to go through is actually modifying our query. Because it's great that we told it to go by index and get the first 10 rows, then the next 10 rows. But our query doesn't really know that. It's going to run fully every single time, and it's going to deliver the full data set every single time. And so what we can do is essentially insert an index limit into our query. And again, to avoid writing any actual DAX, what you can essentially do is I have another tab. It's the same visuals that we saw before, but I added a filter to it. So in my filter pane, you'll see I used my index column, and I said, hey, make sure that this is greater than or equal to 1 and less than or equal to 20. And what that happens in our DAX is you'll see we get a line here, and that appears, these limits appears. And so we can use that in the query itself in Power Automate. So I'm going to copy this, and whoops. So this should have been a 1, that should have been a 20. So instead of hard coding our numbers here, we can just set them to be equal to our variables. So whatever our index start currently is, we want it to be bigger than that, and we want it to be lesser than our end value. And with that, that's the last modification we should have to make. So all we did was add some variables, make sure we're looping through them in this do until loop, and make our query respect the fact that we only want part of our query at a time. And I'm going to go through just to show that it works. Let's delete all the data from here. And let's save this. Hopefully everything was input properly there. Perfect. And we're going to test it again. And what you should see is that it is going to run. It's going to produce those same 45 rows. And what we'll see in Power Automate is that this will loop through five different times. And we'll be able to see that once the do until loop is done. And while it's actually running, I know I promised you to show you how you can see that schema. So if you wanted to see the schema that we used again for this parse JSON, that whole body item here, all you have to do is you can go to your outputs of your query run. You can go to show raw outputs, and you'll see you want to grab this body at the very end. It's going to look the exact same every time if you've only got one row of data. And so you can just copy and paste this if you ever forget or you need to relook it up. But in any case, this should be running. Let's see. Oh, let's reload that. It looks like it might have not respected my deletion there, but you can see it started over. It should be close to completion there. Looks like it is. And once this tab is done, in Power Automate, what we should see is that this completed. It completed with 5 runs. And you can see, every single time what it incremented it to, what the new value was. So if it errored out for some reason, if it's not incrementing up to the right value, you can see exactly what's going on in each of these runs. And so that really is the bulk part of the demo. I won't essentially copy and paste everything to that summary tab because it would be essentially doing all the same things there, and I've already showed you the mechanics of doing everything there. But really that's the bulk of the demo. So this is how you both handle those errors and make sure that it's consistently running. And again, for maintainability, if you ever need to copy and paste this, you can do that in bulk. You would really just need to change around your query and the schema, but everything else, all this logic will be able to stay in place. So that's something really handy that minimizes the work that you would have to do. And the last thing I'll show in Power Automate here is if you have access to the Dataverse, you can create what are called solutions. It's not something that I've played around in my personal tenant here yet, so I can't show you fully, but something that you can do to make this process even easier is you can set up in that solution space what's called a child flow. And a child flow is something that you can call in your main flow, in any flow that's in that same solution. So you can see here, this was for that basic case. I'm doing all those same actions of running my data and adding it to a table. And so essentially, I can call this almost like a function into another flow. And rather than listing that entire set of 5 to 10 steps, if depending on which version you chose to implement, all you would have to do was call this child flow. It would ask you all the pertinent information that you would need. So what workspace, data set, all those things that you saw me input by hand. It would just ask you to input them there. And that would flow into this child flow, and it would just run. And so rather than having a flow with that entire set of steps, all you would see here was one item. Instead of the scope, you would just see one item that called to a child flow, and you would just have to put inputs in there. So that makes it even easier to really have your management at that developer level and not have to duplicate and replicate your work over and over again. And with that, just have a couple more slides, and then I'll take any questions you guys have. So kind of as a summary, the pros of this solution are the maintainability and error handling. Typically when something errors out, it'll tell you what part of the process it errored out in when you go and look at your flow run. From a maintainability standpoint, you can name every single one of those steps. It's very clear what they're doing just based on the component that you're using. So you can detect any changes that might have broken it. For if your SharePoint site moved, if the file directory didn't exist anymore, things like that. Plus, the Power Platform, we generally have more developers than macros nowadays, at least at my firm, and I imagine at other firms. Secondly is scale. Like I mentioned, you can just copy that entire scope block, copy and paste it, change just a couple of inputs really, and you're good to go to build an entire new solution, in probably less than a day. And then unlike the macro solution, this can be done on a schedule. So you can, if you know your data is ready by 6 a.m., so you can schedule this to run, and by the time you've hit your desk, this is hopefully already done, no manual intervention required by your users. And then this also separates our users from our developers. So, technically, a user could go into the macros, they could mess around with them, and they could alter the code in ways that might break it. And they might also just have to worry about the technology that they're using. That accidents can happen, macros can be deleted, altered, moved, and that's not really great. Whereas now, I've really removed them from seeing anything in the development console. We run the Power Automate on their behalf if they're not technical, and all they see is that final product. All they see is the things they have to work, which is the more ideal experience for them. But one of the cons can be speed. As you saw, this solution populates a few rows at a time. So if you've got a small data set, this still is going to be pretty good. It's not going to take much time. If you've got thousands and thousands of rows, this might take half an hour. It might take even longer. But again, the trade-off being if you can run this earlier in the morning before you actually need it, even if it takes a little while, hopefully it's ready for you by the time you sit and actually need the data. And then just one more slide here. If you're looking for a solution for just a single tab Excel sheet, please don't use this. There is a much easier solution where you just create a paginated report and you export that to your SharePoint location. No need to go through all the steps that I just showed. And secondly, like I mentioned at the very start, there are certain add-ons that let you do right back in Power BI, and the Microsoft team did release translytic data flows, not data flows, translytic flows earlier this year that work in conjunction with Dataverse, and that allows you to do right back. But again, those are all potentially add-ons. So if you don't have those add-ons, if you want something that is just out of the box, no extra stuff, this solution works very well. And then as promised at the start, I do have a couple links here. The left one is to my portfolio in case you wanted to connect on socials or just see the stuff I've worked on before that I've posted. And then on the right-hand side, I have a link to my GitHub. I did create a folder for this presentation. It's got some zip files that have those Power Automate flows in them. So you can import them to your Power Automate and see the steps themselves without having to recreate it from scratch. And it also has this PowerPoint and the template Power BI file. And with that, I'll take any questions, comments, feedback, rubber duck suggestions that you have. And hopefully you guys found this useful.
Yeah, so my feedback is, so I did a whole solution in Power Automate, and you have that scope loop is huge. I mean, I can't can't recommend that enough. I just found that at the very end of my like development days. I'm like, oh, I could wrap all this up, and it's great for error trapping, and it's great for all this. So use scope. The other thing is save often. I don't know how many times I would do a bunch of stuff and I try to save it and it comes with a red stupid error and I have to go back and oh, it was just awful. So yeah, Hire Automate's a little finicky here and there because it's in the web and it's Microsoft. So just when you get to a point, just save it. Just save it. Keep saving it.
Yep.
That was my only option. But no, it all looks familiar. That's a great solution. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it
I-
doesn't look like there's any other questions.
No.
So oh,
Oh, there
it
you go,
looks
Jack.
like Jack has a question.
Yeah, really interesting solution, and I'm so glad that you had that first consideration at the end because I was sitting here watching it going, well, why wouldn't you just do a paginated report? But then the whole, multi-tab thing is the killer. So
Hmm.
I'm glad I was thinking the right thing, but you delivered on it. So it was great. And I was just wondering, I've dabbled in Power Automate. Did you just teach yourself this, or did you come with some other experience elsewhere?
Yep. I taught myself this. I primarily I do Power BI things, but I came to this project landed on my desk where I needed the output of that team's data process, and so I dove in. I knew, like you said, you could use the paginated reports. After a couple days of trying, realized like there's no possible way I could have done that to a multi-tab Excel sheet. And
Yeah.
so I scrawled YouTube and Google, and a YouTuber had that kind of that basic solution that I showed without any of the error handling. So I was able to uh, modify it a little bit to make it work in my use case. And then once I hit those errors that I went through in that second portion of the demo, I included those as well in my standard template. So that all self-taught there after the basic stuff.
Cool. Thank you.
No problem.
Still think there's an AI. I don't think you should be able to prompt him and go, can you loop through this and write these? I mean, the JSON stuff. Come on, Microsoft, make it
Yeah,
easy.
yeah. Getting all that syntax right with the item or items and all that
Oh,
that was
drives me
honestly the
crazy.
hardest part. I was like, JSON schema. Where do I get a JSON schema?
No.
It took me another day to figure out. Oh, I can just run it, and it'll give it to me. It's like, oh my
And
God.
then copy and paste, yeah, as
Yeah.
a sample, right? Yeah, no, it's good stuff. Any other comments, questions, anything?
Yeah, I just want to say nice job, Alan. This is good stuff. I'm I guess I'm probably an intro user compared to what you showed for Power Automate. I've done, simple solutions, but not anything like you've shown tonight. So it's impressive. So thanks for sharing that with us.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it. And this solution definitely leveled up my Power Automate skills. That it took me
I
probably
can see
like
why.
2 or 3 weeks to figure all those components out. And then
Yeah,
after that, I was able to, there used to be actually a lot more coding in there until I figured out there was even better buttons I could press to
yeah,
make it easier.
I bet. Yeah, I've done a lot of, I guess, Power Automate integration with SharePoint lists. So I
Hmm.
haven't done much with Excel, but I have done a lot with the SharePoint world for things that I have to do, but have not dabbled much in the Excel, what you can do with Excel through Power Automate.
Yeah, I think
And
what we
then
did. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying, like, bring it home to Power BI. There is a Power Automate visual, right? You can add it there and click a button, and it'll call that
Yeah,
thing if you don't want to do it scheduled or triggered or anything like that. If they're already in Power BI anyway, they can click a button and run that same thing.
that's true.
Yep.
Yeah.